Dexter has completely changed one major OG aspect of his Dark Passengers. I need to talk about something that's been driving me absolutely insane, and I think every real Dexter fan will feel this too. Because tell me this, when did we go from the quiet, eerie whispers of Dexter's Dark Passenger to him literally touching his hallucinations like they're real people? I mean, are we supposed to believe that Harry can slap him on the back of the head now? What is happening? And here's the part that's truly haunting. This change isn't just a stylistic shift. It rewrites the most sacred rule that defined Dexter's psychological world since season 1. The rule that his dark passengers weren't real, that they were fragments of his guilt, his code, his control. But now, it's like those fragments have escaped his mind and started existing with him. Let me tell you why this might secretly be one of the most brilliant and terrifying narrative twists the franchise has ever pulled. When I first saw Dexter reach out and touch Harry in New Blood, I had that classic wet "hold on, did that just happen?" reaction. You probably did too, because every fan who grew up on the original series knows Harry was never physical. He was a voice, a guide, a conscience built from Dexter's trauma. The fact that they broke that unspoken rule means something deep, something forbidden. See, the original Dexter series operated like a psychological chess game. Every hallucination was symbolic, a moral argument inside Dexter's own head. When Harry appeared, he wasn't there. He was Dexter's way of coping. But in New Blood and Resurrection, the barrier between hallucination and physical reality is gone. And the question we all should be asking is why now? Because maybe, and I know this is going to sound insane, maybe Dexter's not the one in control anymore. Think about it. When Harry slaps him, or when Deb touches him, it's not just for drama. It's a physical manifestation of his inner voice taking control. These dark passengers are no longer symbols. They've become entities. Entities that touch, manipulate, and dominate Dexter's actions. That's not a coping mechanism anymore. That's possession. And here's where the theory gets dark. Remember how in the original show, Dexter's code was the one thing keeping his monster in check? Well, what if these physical visions are proof that the code is breaking down? The more real Harry and Deb become, the less real Dexter is. His sense of identity, his sense of control, is dissolving. But hold up, let's not forget something crucial: the timeline. If we line up the shows by story, not by release, the hallucinations don't just change, they evolve. In the early years, Harry's appearances were calm and distant. By New Blood, they were tactile and aggressive. By Resurrection, they're practically human. That means Dexter's psychosis has been escalating in real time. And if that's true, then Dexter's dark passengers aren't just metaphors anymore. They're evidence of a mind that's disintegrating. Now, before we dive deeper into how Resurrection completely flips this on its head, I need to say this. If you're someone who's obsessed with unraveling the psychological secrets behind Dexter's evolution, then you need to subscribe to Breakdown Epic. This is where we decode the hidden rules, the forbidden symbolism, and the clues that even Showtime won't admit are there. So hit that button before Dexter's next kill. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Okay, let's go back, because there's something eerie about this touch phenomenon. You might have noticed that in Resurrection, Dexter stops seeing Deb completely, which, at first glance, feels like a lazy production choice. Jennifer Carpenter moved on, so Deb's gone, right? But narratively, that absence speaks volumes. If we read it symbolically, Deb's disappearance is the cost of Dexter's acceptance of his dark passenger. In New Blood, Deb was the emotional voice, guilt, regret, family. But when Dexter begins to touch Harry and treat his visions as real, he's no longer divided between emotion and logic. Deb fades away because Dexter's humanity fades with her. It's as if Deb's ghost was the last line between the killer and the man. Once she's gone, Harry, the cold, clinical father, becomes dominant again. That's terrifying when you think about it, because it means that in Resurrection, Dexter might not even need to kill by code anymore. He's killing by instinct, and the dark passenger is the one calling the shots. But here's the real secret. What the writers are doing, subtly, cleverly, is evolving the language of Dexter's hallucinations. They're using physical contact to tell us that the line between illusion and reality no longer exists. In psychological terms, Dexter's delusions are crossing into shared hallucination territory, where the audience is forced to experience them as real. That's why you feel like Harry and Deb are alive again, even though they're not. The camera doesn't show Dexter's point of view anymore. It shows their point of view. And that's not a mistake. That's forbidden knowledge. Because when the audience begins to see through the eyes of the hallucination instead of Dexter, it means the show itself is losing its grip on sanity. Tell me that's not genius. And yet I can't help but laugh at the irony. For years, fans joked that Dexter needed therapy. Well, guess what? Now he's literally being haunted by his therapists. Harry's lectures, Deb's emotional breakdowns, the ghosts of his guilt. And they're finally fighting back. Imagine if every regret you've ever buried could suddenly reach out and slap you. That's what's happening to Dexter. The physicality of Harry and Deb isn't just creative flair. It's the embodiment of guilt gaining strength. And that is horrifying. But let's pause here, because I want to know what you think. Do you believe these dark passengers are still hallucinations? Or do you think the writers are hinting that something supernatural might be creeping in? Drop your theory below. I'll feature the best ones in our next breakdown. and I'll say this carefully, there's a theory floating around the darker corners of the fandom that Dexter's dark passenger might not just be psychological anymore. There's a reason the new show's title, Resurrection, sounds almost biblical. What if resurrection doesn't just mean Dexter's return? What if it's referring to the resurrection of Harry and Deb themselves? Inside his mind, yes, but as real entities feeding off him. What if the reason Dexter can touch them now is because they're feeding off his kills? I know it sounds like forbidden fanfiction, but go rewatch those scenes. Every time Dexter kills in New Blood or Resurrection, Harry appears afterward more solid, more human. Almost like a vampire growing stronger with each feeding. That's not symbolism, that's escalation. And that's where things start to connect to Harrison. Because here's the thing nobody's saying out loud, Harrison might not just inherit Dexter's dark passenger, he might be sharing it. Remember in Resurrection how the show quietly shifted its focus toward the father-son dynamic again? That wasn't nostalgia. That was the writers showing us the transfer of power. Harry and Deb's influence fades, but something new starts whispering in Dexter's head. Something younger, sharper, and angrier. And every time Dexter connects with Harrison, the hallucinations change. The tone, the lighting, even the camera work. Subtle clues that this dark passenger might not be his alone anymore. So here's my theory. The moment Dexter can physically touch his dark passengers is the moment that boundary collapses, and the passenger stops being an internal thing. It starts spreading. That's why Harrison feels so drawn to him. It's not just fatherly connection, it's infection. Think about it. Dexter's code was designed to control chaos. Harry's ghost represents that control. But as Dexter loses grip on reality, his code fragments, and that dark passenger starts leaking out. Harrison's violent impulses, his obsession with justice, that's not coincidence. It's inheritance. Not of blood, but of energy. And that's the forbidden truth the writers have been sneaking in from the start. It's in the way Harrison hears the voice, even before Dexter returns. It's in the way he mirrors Dexter's calm during violence. And if you really pay attention, it's in the way Harry disappears right when Harrison appears, as if one ghost stepped aside to make room for another. Now, here's where it gets even darker. If Resurrection continues this arc, we might be heading towards something the original show never dared to do, make Dexter face a dark passenger that doesn't obey him, because now it belongs to two people. And the moment that happens, all the rules change. But let's stop pretending this isn't deliberate. Showtime knows exactly what it's doing. They took something psychological and made it tangible. The touch, the slap, the physical contact. It's their way of saying the inner demon isn't inner anymore. It's become manifested guilt. And here's the twisted brilliance. We, the audience, are complicit. Every time we watch Dexter rationalize his kills, we participate in that delusion. The show trains us to accept it, to understand him, even to root for him. So when Harry touches Dexter, it's not just his ghost becoming real. It's our empathy becoming the monster. That's what I mean when I say the dark passenger rule wasn't just changed, it was broken. And yet, I can't help but love it. Because if you've followed Dexter since the early seasons, you know that the series was always a conversation between morality and madness. What happens when the killer starts believing he's the good guy? Well, Resurrection answers that, by making his imaginary friends believe they're real too. But, okay, humor break. Can we talk about how Harry's ghost is literally doing the most this time? Man's been dead for decades and still finds time to micromanage from the afterlife. I swear, if Dexter ever joins him, Harry's gonna start assigning kill quotas like a performance review. Still, I can't deny it. Seeing Harry and Deb back, even in this eerie new way, hits different. It's nostalgia turned nightmare. The father figure that once guided him now physically punishes him. The sister who once loved him now taunts him. It's like watching Dexter's guilt metastasize. And you can feel the writer's fingerprints all over it. They're not just reviving favorite ghosts. They're turning them into commentary. Resurrection isn't about who Dexter kills. It's about what parts of himself he can't kill. You know, it reminds me of something I said in our last video, when we broke down the Lady Vengeance theory. Remember that? We talked about how Dexter's morality was eroding, how each new chapter blurred the lines further between man and monster. This right here, this is the proof. And since we're being honest, let me throw a wild hypothetical at you. What if the next step in Dexter's evolution isn't about killing at all? What if the dark passenger's goal is to replace him entirely? Imagine Harrison realizing that the voice in his head, the one that tells him who deserves to die, isn't just his conscience. It's Dexter's ghost. That's the kind of forbidden storytelling the franchise has always flirted with. And if Showtime has the guts to go there, Dexter Resurrection might finally earn its name, because Resurrection wouldn't just mean Dexter's back. It would mean his passenger's alive. So here's my honest take. I don't think Dexter can come back from this. The moment you can touch your hallucinations, the moment your inner voice slaps you in the face, you're gone. The walls are down. The dark passenger's in control, and no amount of code can fix that. But now I want to hear from you. Yeah, you. Do you think Harrison's seeing his own version of Harry now? Do you think Dexter's mind has completely cracked open? Or is all of this part of a deeper plan that'll make sense later? Let me know your theories in the comments. The best one gets a shout out in the next breakdown, and trust me, this next one's gonna be wild. because I've seen the behind the scenes photo that changes everything. The one that shows what Dexter's been hiding in that new lab setup. And it's not what you think. We'll talk about that in our next video. Until then, this is Sophia from Breakdown Epic, reminding you that the darkest truths aren't the ones Dexter hides from the world, they're the ones he hides from himself. See you soon.